Ooh, I realized I forgot one thing. All right, so we should be live, I believe. Please let us know if you can hear us and see us all. On the screen, you should see a beautiful Matt with full makeup and a tired Scotto and a newly haircut bald Vince. So welcome everyone. This is Rocket Lab Weekly, episode 95. How is every one of you doing?
Can't complain. It's been a pretty good week. I guess since the last time we talked, I trimmed some Rocket Lab. Sorry, guys, but
it's all right. Understand.
Yeah, I mean, with the run up we've had, and like, granted, it's still 15% of the portfolio, so it's not like I got rid of it by any means. So just wanting to raise a bit of cash, and yeah, just is what it is.
Congratulations. Anything in particular you have on your mind, or just diversification?
Just cash, like just with everything kind of in the portfolios kind of all ran up, and the cash position is like was under 20%, and I just kind of like to kind of, you know, in the back half, which maybe we are, maybe we're not, of a bull run, I like to be closer to like 30% cash, so it's more just a fundraising effort than anything.
Love that, especially when you're more of like I'm actually kind of curious in terms of space industry investments. How invested are you? Is it a lot of your portfolio, or is it just been Rocket Lab that's mostly your runner that has taken up the majority of it?
Yeah, we got Rocket Lab's 15%. Redwire is like below 10. Black Sky similar position, and then I have one that I don't think I've ever talked about on the channel. It's like a indirect space play, but they're called 5N Plus. And actually, I'll give a quick pitch for them. They're when Rocket Lab talks about Solero, they often mention Spectralab by Boeing, and they often mention Azure by, it turns out that they're a subsidiary of a Canadian company called 5N Plus, and it was one that was just kind of like borderline a value play, and it just kind of performed really well. So that makes up another 5%. So I guess
half the portfolio.
Well, I think like something like 40%, give or take, is space related, and then Tesla, and then battery stuff, and yeah.
So 40% including the cash position, or not including the cash position?
Not including cash.
Okay. So either way, I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I can understand, because that's a very volatile space. Having cash on hand allows you to be more of a sniper. It'd be different if, like, I feel like if you were I don't know, investing in stuff that isn't as cyclical / volatile. But being in as volatile of a space, I can understand for sure the cash wanting to be there.
And so far, it's been a good call. I think when I read your tweet, I think we were on the highest ever day, and it's been a pullback ever since that. So far, so good, no?
Yeah, short term got lucky with that. Yeah. I never try to like hit the tops or anything. You're never going to hit the tops. You're never going to get back in at the bottom. So it's just kind of wasn't too calculated. I was actually looking in like at like the 42 was kind of my number to trim, and it just blew right past that. And I was like, okay, it's over 50 now, you know, kind of getting a little bit.
It was like 10% or 20% of the position?
I think around 20%.
Awesome.
Around 20%, yeah.
That's awesome. So it probably ends up being about your cost basis, probably.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So now you're only playing with casino money in Rocket Lab. That's pretty good.
Pretty well. Yeah, and same thing with Black Sky. Like they're... And same thing, that one I trimmed, and like in hindsight, it's like 25-30% up or something since I trimmed, but that's all just like the money that was put in has been taken out. So that doesn't really, you know, the position can kind of do whatever at this point. I'll be happy.
That's awesome.
Pretty good.
For me, sorry, go ahead, Vince.
No, you go ahead. You got it.
I was just gonna say, for me, the opportunity that I saw this week was writing covered calls for August 29th. The $80 covered calls for Rocket Lab were trading at 48 cents. And so when you have tens of thousands of shares like I do, you know, you write 48 cents, which is $48, right, per 100 shares. It's like, yeah, I'll take that, right? Like,
what did you get for
48 cents? I mean,
no,
48
but
cents.
The total dollar, I think that was like.
Don't worry about that. That's not important. The enough to to help pay for some dinners. So enough for some other extracurricular activities that we might have to partake in, vacations, etc. So it was nice to have, and that alone, if that expires worthless or I get a lot of it, what I will say is it's about 10% of my cost basis just for $80 cover. So it's very far out of the money, right? Like in between now and August 29th, it's not like I'm locking it up. And it was actually interesting. Maybe people are interested if it does go back to $50 on Thursday. So literally 2 days ago, before the stock, obviously yesterday wasn't the best day for the stock price. It was down 2% or so. But on Thursday, when I was looking, the January 2026 $80 covered calls, well, just calls, maybe not covered, but just $80 calls were going for $4.40. And so if you think about it, it's like that in that respect, you'd be able to capture a little less than 10% of your cost basis, or not cost basis, even 10% of the company's value within a matter of 6 months or so. Granted, yeah, the stock could run to $80, right? But the likelihood, in my opinion, at going to $40 billion market cap valuation prior to having multiple Neutron launches and really delivering that cadence, I think is pretty stretched, unless the constellation ends up being a way bigger deal in the short term than I give it credit for. But anyway, just
you won't hear me endorse covered calls. So I think this was a very stupid move, Matt. And this was my exact thinking when the stock was back in 8 and I managed to get myself into the $15 covered calls. It was like, I think even the timeline was similar. It was from August to January 16 or something like that. So
yeah. But I know some people that are closer to retirement, and they're like, if it gets to 80, that's however big of a position for me. And they're like, at that point, as much as I would love to continue to follow the company and be a fan of the company, I have to think about my retirement and the income. And and you guys know, I plan on holding this to either extreme. I don't think it'll ever go to zero, but I think it could flatline at 20 billion just based off what the company's delivering. But I'm okay with waiting for what the long term might show. I've been allotted with the great work I put in, the portfolio I've been able to accumulate. I'm allowed to, or I've allowed myself to take on that risk. So for better or worse, we'll see what ends up happening with my shares in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the only way I think option plays are smart is if it's something that you would do anyways, right? So if you have this retirement goal that if Rocket Lab goes to 80, I sell no matter what, and then you like write a call on it and you earn money on it, it's like that I can approve, right? But yeah, it can be not so smart. Don't do it like how I did it. But I agree. Here, it's probably a good time to write cover calls, especially so far out of the money. Okay, I know it doesn't belong here, but a lot of people are interested in Tesla stock. What did you guys think about the earnings? Just as a passing few sentences on this.
I thought it was fine. I understand the. I don't know. Well, you know what? I don't understand the pushback, because it's like nothing was like they didn't blow anybody out of the water. But my biggest takeaway was like they keep talking about these cheaper models, and they basically said like it's already starting to be made, and it's not just being announced, but you could order one in Q4. So I thought that was kind of a bigger deal than people are giving credit for. But I understand the kind of like hesitancy to believe Elon Musk's timelines in regards to autonomy, but it's like they started in late June. They've doubled their range, and they're probably going to like double it again right away. And they're talking about like being accessible to like half of America by the end of the year. So I'm like, that's a lot of high margin revenue coming in later this year, assuming all goes well. But kind of my biggest takeaway, I've been looking into EOS Energy, kind of talking about it a bit more on X now. But the commentary that Elon made about the mega packs, I think that's going to translate really well to EOS's earnings that come out in just a few days here. So really bullish on that. Well, like cautiously optimistic, I should say, for EOS's earnings. It's going to be either like they're going to hit it out of the park or completely flop. So it's going to be an exciting week anyway.
Yeah. Interesting. Matt?
I just think it's from an underlying company perspective, I think that they're going to do okay. They're just got to a place where they're able to start distributing the new models, that not new models rather, but the refreshed models, I should say. And so I think that they'll see an uptick again. I think a lot of people are getting tired of what the old models looked like, or and I think sales were starting to drop off a bit. So the fact that there's a refresh, I think will help with rejuvenating some of the Model Y sales, and I'm curious to see what happens with that. But I think over time, it's going to be a great opportunity to continue to see how Waymo and Tesla perform, and what the future is looking like in terms of regulatory for full self-driving. It's an interesting time, man. I never thought, growing up over the past 30 years, we'd get to this place, right? We always talked about it. We always thought about flying cars and stuff like that. And the fact that the age is upon us is really interesting. So it's cool to see a company be involved. And fortunately, we get to hear a lot more about it with Tesla. We don't get to hear so much about it with Waymo from like a stock perspective, unfortunately, because they're privately sectioned off company, their own private company that is partly owned by Google and others. So interesting times, and I'm curious to see how they continue to develop. But the margins seem to stabilize from a company corporate perspective, and it seems like they're not as in a dire situation as it looked like they were in the first quarter. First quarter looked like it was pretty rough. So hopefully they can sustain these types of margins going into the latter half of the year, and curious to see how Optimus shows up in the next 24 months.
Yeah. Cool. Very, very interesting. I mean, I was asking because, it's such a case study, that stock, that in one way it has like this super bullish future, and then the next few quarters are going to be like not so good. And, the company earnings wise is deteriorating, which means that the already super high multiple is just expanding and expanding for no reason. And then it's such a polarizing, like you have the bears and the bulls, and it's quite an interesting stock. And I have some calls on Tesla, and then I was thinking about selling it at the earning, like, how do you call it? Just selling it based on like how unenthusiastic Elon Musk was on the earnings call, and that there will be few rough quarters, and but then while I was thinking about it, like the stock went up, and then I was like, it's better to just sit on these things. And yeah, so it's just curious to touch the pulse. Okay, so now let's go over to our beloved Rocket Lab Weekly, and let's see what has happened this week to our stock. So I guess the Rocket Lab bears that were on Rocket Lab Weekly last week, they were right when they predicted that there would be a pullback. Let's hope that those members of the Rocket Lab Weekly will not be as hated as we are sometimes. And now let's start with the Rocket Lab news. So Rocket Lab tweeted, Launch Complex 3 is almost complete and on track for its official opening next month. Our team in Virginia is deep into Launchpad activation, going system by system to prepare for test operations once flight hardware arrives ahead of Neutron's first launch. And we have gotten some amazing pictures here of the pad. I don't know. I want to zoom in. You guys see that this is for the rocket flame. This was missing before. What is this called again? Flame
channel, I think.
Yeah,
flame channel. Yeah.
Flame trench, maybe.
Flame trench, exactly. So this was something that was missing before. Yeah, this is an aerial view. You can see the pad is looking very, very good. The only thing missing here is stage 1 and stage 2.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that Rocket Lab is going to have like a public opening, or they're just going to put a press release like, okay, now the pad is open? And are you guys excited about the pad opening? Wink, wink.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not 100% certain how public it'll be, but it'll be exciting, and I'm sure it's going to be a huge display of execution for the company. So regardless of whether or not it's I guess displayed to the public, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of folks from the government. They're going to be allowed to kind of tour it, maybe not necessarily on its direct opening, but I'm sure there's a lot of government people that are going to be viewing it over the coming months, just to show how quickly they've been able to turn this around, because a lot of companies have been given this opportunity to display just this, right? Putting a medium launch vehicle together and being able to display their capability. And unfortunately, a lot have failed over the past 5 years. So this is going to be a testament to the execution ability of the company and the executive team and the operations team that's put in place. And I'm sure with that, there's going to be a lot of partnerships that develop based off of the fact that they were able to put this together in such short order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like some of their other like grand openings have been pretty like, you know, like here's the snapshot, here's the photo op, and they're cutting the ribbon, and you know, let's get to business. But I think with this one, I think they should make a big deal about it. I hope they make a big deal about it because it's well deserved. You can tell, like, I especially like you know, in this group here, it feels like every week we're kind of like, what's going on, and to kind of like be looking at the screen right now, it's like, damn, they did it. Like it's almost showtime. Yeah. It's really cool to have been a part of, just like watching.
Yeah, it's so funny because I've been complaining for many Rocket Lab weeklies that it feels like, you know, there's no news, no updates, no nothing. And this week there is a ton of updates about Neutron, so it's a really good week from that viewpoint.
Vince is bearish.
Yeah, Vince is bearish, exactly. By the way, Curtis, thank you so much. He's our angel investor here in the channel. He has gifted 5 memberships from Scotto's channel, and then my channel, and then Matt Money's channel. So,
much appreciated, brother. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much, Curtis. And yeah, Matt, what do you think about the pad opening?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I definitely think it's happened faster than I thought, and it's really been cool to see it go from really a dry plot of land to develop. I think the thing that's still cool for me is you see this water tower and it looks so small and super skinny, but in reality, when you see the actual things on the ground, you just notice how large this pad and this water tower actually are. You know, those are pretty big piping systems that allow a lot of water to be moved. So it's interesting to overall see. You know, you don't see the grand scale of how large these things are. That's a car, right? Look at the car comparatively to the pad, right? You would anticipate it's like, oh, that pad doesn't look so big, right? The thing that I'm most curious about, which I would actually want to see somebody, which I'm sure you'll get to, the photoshopped picture of Neutron on it. Maybe you did, maybe you are bringing it up, maybe you aren't, but
no, I was thinking about it, but I
no, you don't. But so somebody photoshopped a picture for context for people. Somebody photoshopped a picture and I was like, it doesn't have a shadow, and it's obviously it wasn't real, right? They photoshopped a picture of Neutron first stage and second stage on there. But I'm actually kind of curious, when it was on the pad, what does it look like? I'm anticipating, obviously, that big hole in the middle where all the rocket flame is supposed to, or the engine flames are supposed to be going, you know, into the thrust channel or whatever it's called. Obviously, it's going to be covered up by the entirety of the rocket. But yeah, but I'd love to see exactly how large it is sitting on that pad. But yeah, it just goes to show you, like, the diameter of what Neutron is going to look like. If you look at that white truck that's in the upper left, or the 2 white trucks in the upper left, they would easily fit in that large open channel within the pad itself, and so Neutron itself is going to be wider than the diameter. Like the diameter is going to be wider than that big white truck. So it's a pretty big rocket that's going up into space, much larger than what we're used to with Electron. So it'll be interesting. I would love to see like at Wallops or something like that if I ever have the opportunity to go, or like if I ever have the opportunity to go to New Zealand and check out the facility in the Mejia Peninsula. Like if they have a mock-up or even like a real Neutron or Electron, if they recover them and they like put them on display, I would love to see them like out front. Just like how Maddie saw the Archimedes bell, right? When she went and went to go see Peter Beck and interview him. Like I would love for them to have a mock-up or a refurbished Electron or Neutron, just to see, you could see the scale right next to each other, because I don't think that people fully understand the size.
Yeah.
One other point of reference here, actually behind me, this is like the standard, like it's a Falcon Heavy, which is like just beefed up Falcon 9. This right here, that's the Tesla Roadster. I don't know if you guys can see that tiny little red brick. It's like a single, like one of those 2x4 red bricks, and then you got the Neutron here. So it's like very.
That's a really useful, because all the way to the right's the Saturn V, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's a really good useful point for me, because I've seen the Saturn V like replica in Houston a bunch of times. So because everyone
this works too here. Make sure I don't bump anything. This single, that's like what the bottom is, like a single brick. If you guys are familiar with Lego, it's like a single. So that's like the size of a human, and that's it next to the other rockets there. Well, I tipped over, but
that looks about right. Yeah, I mean, when I've toured the Saturn V, I mean that the scale seems right for the little human compared to the Saturn. I mean, it is insane. So the even fact that the Neutron is like half the length of that and slightly even smaller in terms of width is just insane.
Matt, it looks like you lost a bet or something.
Maybe, yeah. If I owe people money, let me know. I don't remember it, but congratulations. If you won money somehow, show me the tweet or something. Show me the clip, because I don't remember. But congratulations if I owe you money. Let me know and show me the post, and your check will be in the mail.
All right. So cool. Let's segue into the next one. So the pad seems to be under control and looking very good, but getting Neutron to the pad is not going as smooth. There was a very interesting article by TechCrunch that was basically going into how Rocket Lab has submitted a permission to dredge a channel through the pad. Here's a little map. I don't know if you guys can see it or no, I cannot. Which basically, I had to look up this term. It's like a nautical term, which basically means to clean out a water body so that ships can, like, basically make it deep enough so that ships can safely pass. And this was locally approved, but it hasn't federally been approved yet. And then because they're running out of time, Rocket Lab submitted a second approval for kedging, which was another term that I had to look up, which is another nautical term that is basically used when a ship is stuck in too shallow water, and then you basically pull an anchor away, and then you pull the ship to the anchor. And then if you read this article, it seems like that there is challenges in getting the Neutron to the pad. They are not unovercomable, but they do need certain types of permissions federally, and this does not yet seem to be given to Rocket Lab. So what do you guys think about this?
I mean, interesting. I wonder if like a request for kedging is kind of like a backup plan, or if they're like not expecting the dredging to go through, because like you said, if they need federal approval, I'm sure they can just show their client list and get expedited. But I mean, either way,
it hasn't. They submitted it in like March, I think, and then
May,
and then in May it was approved by here, Rocket Lab submitted an application for dredging to Virginia Marine Resources Commission in March. And it's apparently waiting for some Army approval, Army Engineer Corps approval.
Yeah,
and
I'm not sure.
And then the kedging seems to be a backup, but it could also be like that. It sounds worse than what it is, because the dredging should cost $5 million and could take all the way up to 2027. So it could also be like an in-between solution, like as you're, digging out the river bed or whatever is there, you can still get the neutrons through on barges. And it did say that like they had to submit different studies, and then they were looking at different ways of getting neutron to the pad, but the conclusion was that other options were either cost prohibitive or they were not really feasible. So it's a bit hard. Like Rocket Lab refused to comment on this article, so like maybe for the first launch they can still like lift it there with cranes, or there is some backup solution that is very costly, but it's not going to be like the final way of doing it, or there is actually an issue, and yeah, we need to nudge the government to give us the permits.
I wonder if it could just be a simple matter too of like, kind of like what we see with licenses, where we're like, what's going on, and then it seems to come through the final week. I wonder if it could be the same thing where they're like, tell us the date and we'll sign the papers. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, Matt?
I don't know much about this other than what I was listening to Space Investor the other day, and he gave a really good, I think it was Space Investor on the weekly show on Wednesday that they have on the weekly space they have on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. So luckily he was talking a bit about this, and so I was educated. I had no idea anything about it until he talked about it. But from what he was talking about, the kedging piece is really only just like a very small portion of this channel that actually needs to happen. So it's not like they're kedging across the entirety of the channel, right? Where they're really trying to the entire extent of the entire channel, which looks to be about a mile long comparatively to where they need to get to and from. So all that being stated, it's like, I don't think that this is going to be a huge holdup for the entirety of the company. If you think about it, even if it does happen until 2027, the cadence isn't much where, you're talking about this is the only way to be able to do this. I mean, at most they might have to do this a couple times until they maybe have to pay the $5 million to get it actually done. And at that point, the cadence will be sufficient enough. Keep in mind, at the current moment, I don't know if people know this or remember, but the current moment of Launch Complex 3 is only 2 launches per annum until further notice, right? So they still have to prove themselves and get approval beyond the 2 launches per annum. And I anticipate that will happen, right? But it doesn't seem like for now the plan is, within the next 24 to 36 months that there's going to be more than, let's just say, 5 or 6 launches happening in Launch Complex 3. Maybe I'd be pleasantly surprised by that. And I hope I am. But to me, I think that gives them plenty of time to get to a place where, hey, they can do the kedging, whatever they need to do, and then eventually pay the $5 million to get whatever needs to be done dredged, and open it up for more access. So I think it's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a yellow light, not a red light, if that makes sense, right? It's a caution, may slow things down a little bit, but it's not a showstopper.
I wonder too, like long term, and maybe this is like just showing my lack of understanding of this too, but like once the waterway is dredged open, does that kind of stay open, or would that kind of close again over time, or would that kind of like create a long term? Like
we're not marine technicians, but
yeah,
I would guess that if you're spending $5 million on it should be a pretty permanent.
Okay,
that's my guess. That's my guess, but
that'd be a cool long-term setup, though. If you have your own little pathway, like could expedite things from New Zealand or wherever.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how active the waterway is, right? I mean, if everybody knows much about, sorry, this is gonna nerd out a little bit, but like anybody knows about oxbow lakes and stuff like that show up, and a lot of that is due to river movements and people like. So it doesn't look like this is a very active waterway. I mean, it looks like it's very slow moving, so the erosion shouldn't be too crazy. So, and I also don't know how. I mean, $5 million to dredge. I'm not exactly sure if they're dredging the entire mile-long channel. Like I said, I'm not as much about this, but or if they're just doing selective dredging along where it needs to be deepened. That I don't know. I have no idea what the thought process is, but yeah, to me, it doesn't seem like it's a very active moving water system. But who knows? Maybe every couple of years it's something that needs to be redredged. I don't know.
I am seeing in the comments too that it is an ongoing thing. So I think a semi-permanent is kind of a way to look at it.
Yeah, it sounds.
Yeah,
waterways are tough,
Mhm.
Yeah, like needs maintenance, but I guess the big work is the first one to do. I guess I don't know. Yeah, we are not engineers here except for one guy, but he's not a water engineer.
I'm not that smart, so
no. Okay, cool. By the way, I saw Modbox was here with us. Maybe he still is, and he did say that there was a plan C. And yeah, what did he say? No, I cannot find his comment. I had it on the screen, but here. So there's been discussions for an option to land on Wallops Beach post September 1st, right at Wallops flight facility. I don't know what that means, but as Matt said, I agree. I don't think this is a showstopper. I believe that they will figure this out, but it must be an annoying point to have Neutron ready and then not be able to easily move it to the pad. And I'm sure this will be handled as we go. Cool. So now let's segue into different things that happened this week. So this picture started circulating the net when Senator Kevin Cramer posted aerospace companies like at Rocket Lab play a significant role in enhancing our national security posture in space. Great to meet with Rocket Lab CEO Peter Beck and hear about the company's ongoing work with the SDA. So we are anticipating that due to the Musk-Trump fallout, the government will be a bit more keen on working with Rocket Lab. And we are seeing signs of exactly this happening. There was an article out by Reuters, which basically says that Trump's Golden Dome looks for alternatives to Musk's SpaceX. And in this article, they discussed that Washington insiders, government insiders reached out to Rocket Lab and Stoke Space, and they said that they are looking for alternatives to SpaceX, and SpaceX will get, a smaller piece of the pie. Yeah, they are accepting solicitations and bids of other companies. So as I said before, I don't think this is fully priced into Rocket Lab and what this can do to the stock. And I haven't had the time, but I do want to do some modeling on this. Maybe Scotto has done some modeling on this, how it can change the company if we get in like a 5 to 10 billion Golden Dome contract into Rocket Lab that needs to be delivered in the next 3 years.
No, I haven't done any modeling explicitly for that, but like it seems like with the kind of run up that like and kind of just across the space industry that it seems like some of this is maybe baked in already or kind of in anticipation. But like I mean, especially with Rocket Lab, because the picture that we saw with Peter Beck in like sitting at the table with a suit and tie, that pairs nicely with a post from the SDA like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, where they were like basically just talking about Rocket Lab's acquisition of Mynaric, which is a little bit like, and yeah, right there, which is a bit of an odd thing to kind of highlight, without some heavy assumptions behind that, right? So yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see for sure.
Mr. Matt, what do you think?
I mean, I think the opportunity to work on the Golden Dome contract is bigger than people anticipate, or sorry, not bigger, more likely than people anticipate. Because if you think about it, there's so many different components and such a short timeline where when you're talking about billions upon billions worth of dollars in the timeline in which these things need to be accomplished, you're going to have to spread that across multiple companies. The industry is still so much in its infancy that unfortunately, I don't think that there is one single company that would be able to take on the entire contract. So that means there's not going to be a sole winner. And I think a lot of people are still sitting there being like, well, who's going to win? It's like, I feel like the whole industry is going to win, and to a large extent. I feel like there's going to be a large portion of this where there's going to be an opportunity for Rocket Lab to be a prime contractor, a subcontractor, and same thing with SpaceX. And so the fact that you're seeing these meetings ongoing might be beneficial, or hint at the fact that the Golden Dome contract is moving forward, and they're doing additional checks and balances before finally awarding the contract. Or it just means that, hey, I mean, regardless of whether or not the Golden Dome contract is awarded in a large way or a small way to Rocket Lab, that our name is being put forth, and regardless of the Golden Dome piece of it, things are going in the right direction. And I think people are recognizing that we have the execution. Rocket Lab has the execution ability, and they are at the forefront of making sure that they're innovating and have an end-to-end opportunity. So I think in that respect, they want more people to potentially invest in their state, right? You have these senators that look and they say, hey, you have people building in Long Beach, you have people building in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you have people building, like, why don't you have something in Texas? Why don't you have something in my state? And so in that respect, they see these Golden Dome contracts coming out and they say, oh, that means potential benefit for my state. If we're able to put billions upon billions of revenue through, that could mean that I could have a warehouse here, a manufacturing plant. That means jobs, and that means re-election for me. So of course they want to meet with Sir Peter Beck, because he has a growing business and a growing industry. And he's just a great guy. Just kidding. Wow, but seriously, he is.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like if you go through the space companies, so SpaceX, I'm sure is going to get a lot of the Golden Dome, but they're looking for alternatives to SpaceX. So who is the alternatives? You have the Boeing, Lockheed Martin, the old space, which is known for super expensive and being late, right? And then you have the new space companies, which is known for cheap but completely unreliable, like think the Fireflies, Astra, Stoke Space. Stoke Space is just very new, so I don't want to call them unreliable. I really like that company, and I think they have potential. But then you have Rocket Lab in this like Goldilocks sweet zone, that they are like not completely new, they're like proven enough, and yet they have the good prices and they can keep schedules. So I would be very surprised if they don't get like, again, as Matt said, like there's not going to be one winner. So it's not going to be that Trump comes out and it's like, okay, Rocket Lab is the sole what is it called, like prime contractor for the Golden Dome, like that's absolutely not going to happen. But can Rocket Lab get 10% of the Golden Dome? Can we get 15%? Can we get 5%? And these numbers, because the Golden Dome is what was the total budget in billions for the Golden Dome that Trump proposed? Was it?
I think 151.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 10% of that is 15 billion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And if we think the price to sales is stretched today, get in 5% of the Golden Dome, I think that resets the price to sales to very cheap levels. And I think Scotto, you're right that I think the recent run in the stock, it was not Neutron, it was the Golden Dome. but I don't think it's fully priced into what it can become.
Mm-hmm. And if it's not that, it's this project or that project. There's just like, it just feels like there's so much to go around. Not even just for the rocket companies, but for everybody. Like you're seeing the run up with like Earth observation, with like Redwire, Voyager. Like just that's a large pie, and everybody can have a part. But
and keep in mind again, the Golden Dome is something that is supposed to be done. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I think under Trump's term or something like this. Like it's what I'm trying to say is the timeline on it is not like Rocket Lab gets a $5 billion contract and it's like in 15 years, get it done. It's like if they get the contract, it's like it also needs to be delivered like insane.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So interesting times. Cool. The next news that I have is just space industry news. It looks like the Trump administration is looking to slash environmental protection rules for rocket launches, and obviously that means easier launches for all companies. Like in the little bit that I read about this, obviously SpaceX would be the biggest winner of this because they are launching the most frequently. But I'm sure that it will make the life easier for Rocket Lab and any other space company. I thought it was just interesting to bring up. I don't know if you guys have any comments on this.
No, just cool to see. Assuming everybody's does it responsibly, of course. But I think if you see too many rockets not making it to orbit and crashing in places they're not supposed to, they'll crack down again. But as long as everybody plays nice, it should be smooth sailing.
Yeah, I come from an industry with decent regulation, and so I believe that the government should be our partner, right, and not a regulator to an extent. And if you view it in the lens of a partnership rather than a regulator, then I feel like the industries themselves and the people will all benefit in tandem. And I think that hopefully that's what is happening here, that they're eliminating red tape where there doesn't need to be red tape, and where there needs to be red tape still stays in place and intact, right? So that's my hope, is that like Scott said perfectly, like the things that need to remain and the regulations that need to be there remain. And there's a good reason that when unfortunately something goes wrong with a launch, the FAA has to be involved, and to make sure that the safety of people continues, because the last thing you need, and there's a reason why we launch over the Gulf, right? There's a reason, like SpaceX launches over the Gulf, or they launch over the into the Atlantic, right? In case anything bad happens, you're landing into the ocean, you're not landing over homes. And so that's the overall goal, is to make sure that people stay safe. So, but at the same time, unfortunately, when you have different administrations changing every 4 years, and you have different people being put in place to run things, you have laws that were built on top of laws and regulations that were built on top of regulations. And so I'm a huge proponent of zero-based budgeting, zero-based design, zero-based regulatory. And it's not to say that I'm against regulation, but what I am is, over time, as companies get older and more mature, they build on top of things that have been done before them. And unfortunately, you lose sight as to what the potential purpose was, or what the initial design metrics were, indicators were, etc. Things are retrofitted for different reasons, and the same things happen with regulations. A different administration comes in that might be more pro or against green, and that can be positive or negative depending on how you look at it. And regulations might be put in place that are hampering against the industry. So when it comes to, hey, what's appropriate for this day and age, I think that there's a reason for zero-based regulatory work. And I think the Trump administration has done a pretty good job from our industry perspective, at least in the oil and gas industry. And and other industries that I've seen where from what I've seen, they've tried to cut 2 regulations for every one that they put in place. And I think that's generally speaking a pretty good thing. That's not to say, by the way, that because you're cutting 2 and only getting 1, that things are going to get worse, right? I think when you write a new regulation, that doesn't necessarily mean that it gets rid of say 2 existing ones, right? The one that you write could be actually an update of the ones that the 2 that you're actually getting rid of, if that makes sense. It could be a hybrid or something that is slightly different, and it makes it a lot more easier from a regulatory perspective to fast pace some of these things. So hopefully overall, just even with the Trump administration, seems to be more elbows on the table than laid back in the chair. It just means that things move along faster from a regulatory perspective in general for getting launches ready, any sort of checks that you need to have for launch in general. So excited.
Awesome. Basically, this was all the news that I had for Rocket Lab and also the space industry. It's peak holiday season, I think, so there's not a lot happening. So I think we could chit chat a little bit more, and if the audience wants, they can ask us questions, or they can raise topics that we can discuss, and then we can keep this line open for a few more minutes to see if any questions come in, and if no, then I think we can end the episode here.
What do you think, Vince? What's the thought? Are you buying any more? Or are you sitting and potentially looking at other space companies, or are you just in a spot where you're hanging out at the moment?
I mean, I'm definitely hanging out. I'm waiting for my cover calls to expire, and then most probably I'm getting back in at a price. It's just hard to know at this point where it goes. I mean, obviously I'm hoping for a juicy dip. That's but at this point it feels more like a hope that than a reality. I mean, I don't think it's possible that it would go back down to 15. That I think is impossible, but maybe we get a dip to like 30 or something, and then that would be very nice to get back in.
I wouldn't complain about a dip. I'd add back in if it gets too low, but
yeah, I've been paused. I forget when I paused my buys, but I think I was like, there was a few other companies that I wanted to shore up. And so I hadn't been doing my biweekly buys now for about a month and a half. And, I'm kind of sitting here like, what's the difference of like, adding, I mean, I'm not going to be adding in like massive size here, but if I'm just adding like $150, $200 every couple of weeks, it's, to me, I think it's worthwhile to do so, especially because now we're getting to the place where the company's getting more mature. And I mean, it's not by any means done growing, in my opinion, but the stock itself has matured a little bit. Obviously going from 2 billion to 25 billion, that's maturing in my opinion. And so, to me, I'm getting kind of prepared for the point where in the long term, 5-10 years down the road, potential share buybacks and things like that, fully recognizing that I think that these guys are going to be generating so much capital and they will be reinvesting in the company. I just don't think they're going to be able to use enough of the money that they're generating to use it all for CapEx. Like, I think that they're going to use a lot of CapEx, but there's going to be so much excess capital, I mean, that they generate, that they can't use it for reinvestment, all of it for reinvestment. So I think the only way that they can utilize it is going to be through dividends and buybacks. So to me, the more shares I can have of this company in the long term just means the easier of a life I can have later down the road. Anyway, it's interesting. I'm very excited to see where this company is 10 years down the road.
Yeah, you know, it's I've been thinking a lot about my recent experience on the stock market, you know, especially with Palantir and Rocket Lab. And, you know, because on the short term, things can feel overvalued. And like, for example, on Palantir, I was like, I don't want to say bearish, but I was like, why would anybody buy at 25? You know, like the price is very, very high. And at the like, because I was looking at my valuation and, you know, like currently what is the stock worth? And then at the same time, I was also the guy who was saying, like Matt, that Palantir is going to be a 500 billion, you know, 1 trillion company in the future, right? And then I realized that if you believe that vision, also with Rocket Lab, if you actually believe that this is a 200 billion company, which you know, it can easily be, honestly, with the satellites and, you know, with the different things, like compared to that future, we are still another 10x away. Yes, we're like, there's going to be pullbacks on the way. It's going to be in many years, but if you look at that, today is not a bad point to buy. But if you're looking at your, you know, DCA, you know, where is the stock compared to the current value? Like, I think the valuation is quite stretched here. So I'm a bit torn. But one thing that was a very interesting lesson is I was trying to teach my daughter to invest her money. She's 10 years old, soon turning 11. And I was telling her, you know, if you invest in the S&P 500, you can get 10%. You know, we will pick certain stocks, and then maybe you can get a little bit more. But, you know, like if you get 20% per year, I was like trying to teach her that, you know, and it's on the years, you know. And in her portfolio, I actually bought Palantir at $30 because I was like, she's buying it for like the next 20 years. And, you know, there's no point for her to like time the market. And most of her portfolio actually was Rocket Lab at $4. So her like $180 or something turned into $2,002 in like in a year's period. And then she's like, oh my God. And now she's like talking about where can she work more so she can put more money to the stock market. And I'm like trying to tell her, it's like, you like won the lottery. Like this normally doesn't happen. But yeah. But I guess what I'm trying to say is when you really have the long-term viewpoint and you see where the company is going, like, yeah, maybe it's not the best price to buy, but it's not a bad place to buy Rocket Lab still at this point, despite all the run-up.
And that's the thought process, right? It's like it's part of the reason why I like look at these technology companies, and I don't think anybody. I just think about where I entered the stock market in 2012, 2013. I don't think anybody in their right mind would have ever thought we had a $1 trillion company, and now we have $3 trillion companies going to a $4 trillion company, and that's become normal. There's like multiple $3 trillion companies now. Yeah. Microsoft, Apple, and Nvidia, and there's, you know, Saudi Aramco is probably not far behind it. And so it's like, you think about it, it's like, why in the world would you ever bet against companies not being able to continue to grow in marketplaces that are unquantifiable to an extent, and intangible? It's like so to me, it's like, if you're selling Rocket Lab here, it's like selling Microsoft or Google in the early 2000s. It's like, you don't necessarily know how expansive space will be, just like how nobody really knew how expensive cloud computing would be, or technology stocks would be, or software would be. And so to me, you know, you try to find companies in growing industries that are the number one, number two in what they're doing. And that's exactly what I'm doing with Rocket Lab. So, and Palantir to an extent. I think Palantir has got a long wavelength for it itself as well. I think it's a new technology company that's completely disrupting things. But that's what I try to look for. I mean, there are some boring stocks in my portfolio as well, like liquefied natural gas and stuff like that, but that's just because I see a runway comparable to. But at the same time, you have to trust management, right? You can have a great vision, and if you don't have the management that's able to execute it, then you're kind of screwed. And that's half the battle. You have to have a great vision. That's the 10% of it. The other 90% is going to be, can they actually execute it, and do you have the right people in place? And fortunately for me, so far, Palantir and Rocket Lab have both had that vision so far.
Yeah. Cool. I see we have a question here. Yo, boys, did you cover the hardware slash services Rocket Lab could currently provide for the project like Golden Dome? I'm guessing there would be also ongoing needs as well. Is the Golden Dome project logged in? Yeah, I mean, the Golden Dome project is definitely not locked in. And I mean, we don't know yet what is needed for, like, I'm sure the services is launch and building satellites. But as far as I know, the specifications of what is needed is not out yet. I don't know if you guys can answer this question better than...
I think part of it, and I'm curious what Scott is, I'll try not to go on a tangent for 8 minutes like I normally do. I think part of it is like part of one of the acquisitions, right? Geost and Mynaric both had infrared opportunities and laser opportunities. And so if you have this communication layer that's, satellite to satellite with the Geost infrared that is able to track, things like missiles or hypersonics being launched from different countries, and now you're using it for defense to be able to keep track and communicate and relay information back to these bases on the ground so they can launch the defense systems. I think that's a huge part of it that Rocket Lab can play into. And I think, honestly, it's probably a part of why they acquired, partly a part, not wholly a part, but partly a part of why they acquired both Mynaric and Geost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, I mean, like I said earlier, it's a large pie and everybody's going to get a slice. But I think it was just this past week, like even SpaceX, King of the Castle, their Starlink went down for a little bit. And that's something that just cannot happen with something like a Golden Dome. But I think a good indicator as to like who might be on the list is look at the current SDA offering, including, partners with Rocket Lab. I think even Mynaric became part of Rocket Lab. I think they were originally a customer to Rocket Lab. Redwire being on there as well. I think that's one that's easy to overlook because I don't think they do a very good job at communicating to investors, but that's one that's worth consideration at very least.
Yeah. Now there is some questions coming in. So let's take Federico Phillips. Can we get your thoughts on imminent dilution? I hope the company does that now at these prices. How do you feel? AST just did it. Yeah, I mean, I think it should be done if it's needed. I don't think a dilution at this point. It would be very smart. I think it would be very smart. I don't know if it's coming, but I would be happy to see it as an investor. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, we do still have, I think, 400 million from that last offering that's on the table, right? That I think Adam referred to it kind of like, I don't know if that was his words exact, but he referred to it kind of like a war chest, which is a good idea. Like it's kind of like a funds for a rainy day, so to speak, in case anything happens. So I think it's kind of already available, which is a smart move, the way that they're rolling it out.
Sorry, you mean the ATM that they put together, Scott?
I
think so. Because there was the offering, there's an ATM, I don't know, whichever one was more recent. There was like 92 million was taken from some $500 million pot as of Q1 end.
Yeah.
But
I'm okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vince. Go ahead.
No, I think he's asking for new dilution. Like if they would come out with we are selling 500 million or $1 billion, like more shares.
No, I don't know if they would need to until they get through that additional 408 million.
Yeah, I think that they have that set aside. I don't personally see it at the moment. I don't think that there's anything right now that's digestible that Rocket Lab would want to acquire that I am aware of, right? So there's probably a billion different companies that I'm not aware of, that like Geost was one that I wasn't aware of. I knew about Mynaric, but Geost was one that would kind of took me by surprise, even though it's a pretty big legacy company. So I'm surprised I never knew about it. But like I said, I'm an enthusiast, not an expert. So I wouldn't be surprised. But to me, I hope that they just don't do any dilution strictly for corporate purposes, if that makes sense. I would like to see the company get to a place now in the next 24 months where their merit and profitability gets them to the extent where they can get traditional debt, and just play the normal corporate debt market like other people. And so where they can just go to a bank and the banks are willing to give them a loan at 7-8%, and they can pay it off over time rather than diluting shareholders. And that's where I would like to see the company get to in the next 24 months. And I hope that the current ATM that's in place gets them to that. Now, if they need to do an ATM or additional dilution to get us to a place where we acquire a phenomenal company like Minaric and Geost, I applaud those acquisitions. If there's something comparable that Sir Peter Beck and Adam see out there that they think that needs dilution, I've trusted them so far, and they've always proven themselves worthy of whatever they've done. I would trust them again until they, I guess, are proven wrong. And I'm sure there's going to be thoughts of bolt-on acquisitions that don't go as smooth as they expect. But so far, everything has gone extremely well. And I think a lot of it has to do with legacy. The companies that they're buying are legacy companies most of the time, like Geost, Solero. A lot of these companies have all been around and part of other companies are delivering for decades most of the time. And so bolting them on and continuing those legacies into now a Rocket Lab is absolutely phenomenal. And I hope that they continue to find those sorts of companies and do the same. But I hope they don't really do much more dilution. Personally, I hope we're getting closer and closer to that break-even point of profitability that we'll see likely in the early to mid 2026 timeframe. And once that happens, I'm hoping we can look forward to just traditional debt.
Awesome. Well, I think it's a good point to end here. We're crossing over the 1 hour mark, and I don't like to keep the show going more than 1 hour. I'm sorry. I see that there's a few more questions, but you guys can tweet it to us, and then we can answer it on Twitter instead. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. I hope to see everyone next week, and may your sky stays blue and your stock stays green. I can't speak anymore. Anyways, you know what I mean. See you guys next week. Ciao,
It's
ciao.
your sign off. How are you messing it up? I'm just kidding.
I don't know. It's a tongue twister every week.
This